Hey everybody, welcome to episode 81 of MAME Politics. I realize I'm a little low, so hold on. I'm gonna boost. I'm gonna boost this shit. Boost it. Boost, boost, boost. Volume boost. How's this sound? Is this better? Or is it still a tiny bit low? Actually, here, I'm gonna do something. Bear with me, guys, for 1 second. Okay, this should be better, I think. So, how's everybody doing today? Sorry, I missed yesterday. I was feeling a little tired, exhausted, and just didn't feel like doing it yesterday. So, hey, good to see you guys. Hey, Celeste. Hey, Catherine. Hey, Bird. Hey, Furious. Hey, Modus. Thanks, man. Modus says, congrats on going on office hours. Yeah, that was a very unexpected turn of events and also a very interesting episode. It was not what I was expecting. I was actually really struck by how earnest and straightforward Tim Heidecker was at the beginning, and how much he really wanted people to know that he's like a good person and that he's not, involved in this crap. And I just thought it was a really interesting thing to witness, because I've only really known Tim Heidecker as being like the most in character, always doing a bit, always being silly. So it was really interesting, and I had no idea it was going to go for 3 hours either. So that was pretty crazy. I can't. Actually don't think I've ever been on any podcast for 3 hours except for my own. So it was quite crazy. So I'm glad some of you tuned in and saw it. I got a really weird follow on Twitter afterwards. So I don't know how big the Office Hours show is, like among like like other comedians in LA or whatever. But it was really bizarre to me that I got followed by Robin Thicke, which I think he's like a pop star or something, right? Like, I don't know. I know he got sued by the Marvin Gaye estate for that song Blurred Lines. That's like literally all I know about him. So cool. So Robin Thicke, if you're watching this stream, hope I'm gonna inject your weird Hollywood brain with some deep politics. So get ready for me to blur your line, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a pretty. I really don't actually. I don't have any like famous people following me whatsoever, so it was just weird. But mainly actually wanted to start this episode with game stuff, because I moved the time from 2:30 to 2, so that some people might not be tuning in until then. And I have to say, this is one of the coolest games I have ever played, and you can kind of see it going on in the background right now. You can see that it has a sort of a Paper Mario style graphic style, where it's like the characters look like they're little paper cutouts. And what's cool about this game, so it's sort of a melee multiplayer fighting game. I think even if you had, I think you could actually play 4 players with it if you had like the 4 hookup controller thing for the PlayStation, or maybe did PlayStation already have 4 controller hookups up on the front? I want to say that it did. So I think that this game is actually 4 players. Um, David, there's actually a Qbert game for PlayStation 1 that's like actually like uses fully 3D graphics, and it's pretty interesting. So I will be playing that at some point since I'm kind of on a PS1 obscure gem kick right now. I mean, there are a ridiculous amount of PlayStation 1 games that I have never heard of. A lot of them are 2D graphics, Japanese exclusives that are like amazing. Um, I think the PS1 I got a bad rap from me because of the popular games for it. I mostly disliked almost every popular game for PS1. Um, I mean Resident Evil especially. Like now that I played it again. I tried to. I can understand why that system and the hype around it turned me off so much at the time because Resident Evil and some of those other games um, have aged really really badly. Kubert is a QAnoner. He might be. He definitely might be. Oh, speaking of, okay, so I don't want to make you guys sad. I don't want to make you accidentally click on any videos with Michael Brooks in it. R.I.P. Very sad that he passed. Unbelievable, shocking. I'm still in shock from it. Um, it was it was really heart wrenching to try to watch the Majority Report tribute stream the day after. I tuned in at times, and other times I just couldn't do it. But one of the last videos that Majority Report did before this horrible tragedy, the passing of Michael Brooks, um, was a video, an interesting video posted by Majority Report. You can go find it right now. It's like one of their most recent uploads. I think, I want to say in their last 20 video clip uploads, like not full streams. Sebastian Gorka has a live streaming like podcast show. I don't know if you guys know this. He's got like a podcast or something. And is it just me or do I look like really dim on the screen? Hold on. Let me just slightly adjust my webcam. Move it down. I feel like I'm like in shadow. I look like really, really dim for some reason. Not intentional. Sorry about that. Maybe here I might put on some lights in the background. Maybe that'll help. I used to have a thing in my room where I could automatically like switch through the colors of my lights, and they removed it from the App Store. It's like a piece of software that used to be able to adjust these lights that's like gone now. You can't download on the internet, which is really irritating to me. I don't know. You used to be able to do like a light show with these lights. I don't know if you could see this. I'm changing. Here I'm just gonna turn it to like normal light. See if that even helps. It's slightly better. So there was a yeah, I think Jan and X. I have a face light for doing video stuff, but it hurts my eyes after a certain point. Actually, after doing it for 3 hours on the Tim and Eric show, I had my light on, like my ring light thing, and I'd say by like hour 2, my eyes were starting to like water and hurt. So I don't know how the fuck. I mean, I'm sure people, celebrities or whatever, like people go on the news, get used to being under like lights for that long, but I'm probably gonna like stop using it because it messes with my eyes and my vision afterwards. A Catch-22, yeah, this game is amazing. This game is absolutely amazing. It's called Rakugaki Showtime. It's a 4-player fighting game where you can. It's like, imagine like a 4-player 3D fighting game where it has close combat, but it's primarily based around almost like dodgeball, but not like normal dodgeball. Like imagine like dodgeball where the ball keeps getting more powerful and like imbued with some kind of like magical powers, where as the match goes on, the ball gets more angry, gets more happy, and depending on what mood the ball is in, it does a different kind of like crazy combo melee attack on like the rest of your opponents. So the goal of this game is you sort of always want to be the one to get the ball and throw it at the other people in the ring. Um, and you'll see why it's cool. I mean, as you can see from this movie, it has like a full little anime opening to it, which is amazing. I mean, this is one thing you wouldn't find on a lot of American PS1 games, is they would have some full motion video content, but it was usually like a splash screen or a cinema, like a pre-rendered cinema. In Japan, PS1 really took the sort of like anime video, like full motion videos in their games, like to the next level. Because before this, it was just like PC Engine, Sega CD. I'm trying to think of other systems that would have allowed full motion video. PS1, I think, was the first Japanese system that really broke through, that had, really good full motion video. Except actually that's not technically true. The PC Engine. So the PC Engine in Japan was the TurboGrafx 16 here. But in Japan, they actually released a 32-bit version of the TurboGrafx 16. It was the PC it was almost like, imagine the Sega Saturn was to the Sega Genesis. The PC Engine, that was like the TG16, also had a 32-bit version. And it was called the PC Effects. It had very, very little games on it. And one of the selling points of the system was that it had a shitload of RAM, video RAM on it, so that it could instantly load up full motion like video anime clips. And they only released the system in Japan. It didn't even really have any of like NEC's franchises like Bonk or anything from like TurboGrafx 16 on it. It was very like anime driven. And pretty much all the games for it were like very Japanese anime style. They had like dating simulator games for it that are very full motion video centric. Oh, you're right, John. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I take that back. So, I guess my thing, what I was saying was in Japan. So, like in America, actually, full motion video did take off in the form of home console video game systems, mostly by way of the 3DO, as John Gold just said, and the Philips CDI, which JNNX just said. So the Philips CDI was actually interesting because it actually launched its own CD format by the same company, Philips, that invented the CD standard. They came up with a new CD standard called a CDI, which was a completely different burnt format, like not Red Book. It was like a totally different format of CD, and you can only play them in certain players. Or you used to be able to only do that. Most players are like fully compatible with CDIs now, but that was an interesting system too, because they almost figured out a way to like condense digital video onto a CD sized disc that almost looked Laserdisc quality, like very, very close to it. 3DO didn't quite get there. They had, they were on regular CDs, so they didn't figure out that weird secret that Philips did, where they were able to figure out how to put like a whole like Laserdisc quality movie on a regular, 650 megabyte CD-ROM back then. I mean, that was actually pretty crazy to even see that existed. And when you kind of think about it now, it's like, yeah, how did they do that? And it took so many people, so long to figure out how to sort of do that online, streaming video. Took a long time for that to get good quality. So it's kind of interesting to me, but totally ranting, going off on a tangent about video games, which I often do on the show because it's not just a political show. Oh man, John Gold, was that? What game was that you're talking about for 3DO? I remember that game that you're talking about. I have memories of that. But here, I kind of want to, I hope you guys don't mind, I kind of just want to show you the sound for this little intro screen, because it's kind of wild. Got some like sitar hip hop. So, okay, so let's check this out.
Yay!
Can anyone translate this in real time? The cool thing about this is it looks like it was definitely hands-on in the computer, like in a fairly simple drawing program. Parts of it almost look like MS Paint, like that kind of. I'm always like very like, I mean, as I'm watching this, it has very little relationship to the actual game. Because in the game, you're like, it looks like you're little torn pieces of paper. So maybe there's something at the end of this cinema that'll show us how they get ripped off of the page. Whoa.
買う店はここまでだ。あとはプレイヤーの腕次第といったところだな。では。
I mean, I can't think of another game I've ever played where there's a whole cartoon, like in the intro for the game. I really love that about it. Spud the Disposable Assassin. Wait, Scud? You mean Scud the Disposable Assassin, JNNX? I think that's what you meant to type. I remember that comic book. That was like a pretty popular indie comic book from back in the day. Okay, let's do this. Fucking do this, dude. Tell me if it's too loud over my voice still. Okay. So as you can see, I cannot read any of this. Can anyone read kanji or whatever the Japanese characters are called? Anyone want to help me out here? I'm just gonna choose the easy option. Who should I be? The pig? Or the little, I'm gonna be the little guy. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so those are my opponents over there. See that? There's me. Gotta get the fucking ball. See that? So I can throw the people too. See what's going on here? Now if I can do like a super combo on them, look. Boom. Son of a bitch. Yes. Can you guys even tell what's going on in this game? In this amazing game? It is like Cuphead. Yeah, that's a good comparison. It's like imagine if someone, I mean it has a total anime. So, remember when I said Destrega, I was looking for more 3D fighting games? I mean, this is kind of what I meant. It's technically a 3D fighting game. It's just perhaps a very unorthodox one. But I am looking for more games like this. I mean, this is a really cool concept. Let's get this motherfucker. Whoa! I don't even know how I won that match. You know, it's another game that actually reminds me of this. It's even more confusing and way crazier. There's a Dragon Ball Z game for Sega Saturn that is like absolutely absurd. That I don't even, when I play it, I don't even know what I'm doing in it. And I'm able to trigger all these crazy cutscenes and things that happen. This game, at least, I can decipher. It took me actually like a few playthroughs. I'd say a good 3 playthroughs before I was actually able to get the hang of what the fuck's going on the screen. Like the first time I played it, I didn't even understand what I was supposed to be controlling or anything like that. I had to read a thing online to slightly understand it. But I definitely still don't fully understand it. I love this track though. It's like a drum and bass track. Boom! Fuck you. I must have put it on a very easy setting or something. So I do not feel like it's a very challenging... These aren't very challenging matches that I'm experiencing so far. This guy's almost dead. Oh, he is dead. Okay. Am I gonna beat this game? Am I gonna unexpectedly beat a game? That'd be fun. Dog? Is that guy supposed to be a dog or a cat? Fucking asshole. I love it how you can like, when you jump in the air, you can like you can almost like infinitely stay in the air if you keep punching. It's not like a juggle combo, it's more like a, oh fuck. Nice. Son of a bitch. Oh no. Yes. Take that, motherfucker. Oh no, there's 2 more? Son of a bitch. You just keep throwing him. Oh man, this game is fun. I have to say this is one of the more fun games that I've played on here. Maybe because it's so easy. I don't even feel like I'm even remotely close to dying. Oh no, there I am. I'm getting my ass kicked right now by something. Fuck. No, I'm dead now. Shouldn't have said that so soon. I got destroyed. Jan and X, kind of a button masher. I mean, I'm playing it like a button masher. I play a lot of games like that, if you couldn't tell already by listening. But I would, it can be. It seems like you can. I mean, just in terms of understanding that you got to throw these balls at the enemies, and then there's like other button press you need to do once you get the ball. Like you can do a super combo once the ball is like a certain. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no! He's doing it to me again! Dude! He's like fucking me up with all these little UFOs. You see that shit? So, it's a button masher to the extent that you can get through the first 4 or 5 levels button mashing, but it looks like at this point in the game, they're expecting a little more out of me than pure button mashing, as you can see here. I'm about to get my ass fucking destroyed again. I don't know what the hell's going on. Alright. Damn. Set Shot just said, seems like DHS was created to do precisely what it's doing in Portland, of course. I mean, anybody who has been following an American empire and erosions of civil liberties over the decades fully understands that the Patriot Act, that Department of Homeland Security, that the war on terror as a whole wasn't just designed to create an endless excuse to expand the U.S. empire and our American footprint. It was also designed to create an endless excuse to erode civil liberties here. And the biggest fear that everybody had was that the Patriot Act would be used to label political dissidents and activists and, you know, people who did different kinds of petty crimes as terrorists. And it actually did start, I mean, the Patriot Act, people maybe not realize this. Michael, who's in the chat right now, he fully understands this, is that the Patriot Act was actually sort of used as a test run against domestic activist, quote-unquote, terror groups that the government deemed terrorists, specifically ELF and other environmental activist groups, what the government deemed eco-terrorism. Those groups were actually prosecuted, and a lot of their trials and people who were involved in those, there were Patriot Act aspects of the law used against them that wouldn't have happened before 9/11. I mean, maybe it would have in a different form, but so it's been pretty clear to anyone for a long time that this is not just for, you know, Islamic terrorists or even like right-wing neo-Nazi terrorists or whatever. I mean, even though you hear all this stuff all the time about the FBI having these groups on watch lists, it's even claimed now that the FBI has QAnon like listed as a terror group. That's weird to me, considering that Richard Grenell, oh god, I fucking forgot. I didn't even continue telling you my Seb Gorka story. about Majority Report. I just got really sad about Michael Brooks. R.I.P. So on Majority Report, the past couple of weeks, there's a really interesting video of Seb Gorka being asked by a caller if he knows when Q is going to take down this deep state pedophile network. And Seb Gorka has almost kind of a meltdown. And it's interesting because he doesn't seem like he's acting. And he goes, QAnon is a cult. It's a scam. It's all lies. Don't believe it. I've been with the president as recently as yesterday, and I could tell you it's a scam. Don't believe it. These people are insane. Everything you read that QAnon talks about is a scam. So that part of it was interesting to me because I don't think Seb Gorka is a good enough actor to lie like that. What he does lie about, however, which is kind of fascinating and very telling and strange, was the caller starts out by asking him if he saw Michael Flynn's QAnon oath before she goes into the deep state pedophile thing. Seb Gorka says, Michael Flynn didn't pledge to any oath. It's not that he didn't pledge to a QAnon oath. Stop listening to the fake news. And it's like, well, he blatantly did. There's no question about it. That's the actual, that was the actual thing that Michael Flynn did. There is absolutely no disputing it. So then to have Seb Gorka completely deny and brush aside that Michael Flynn oath, to then jump into a rant, an angry sounding rant about how he thinks QAnon is a total cult, it's a scam, don't buy it. It was very strange because on one hand, he appears to be telling a total lie and covering for Michael Flynn for some reason. And then on the other hand, he's seemingly giving his honest opinion about QAnon. And that's fascinating to me because that's the first time ever that any Trump official has been asked directly about it and given an answer directly about QAnon. That is the first time anyone from the Trump administration has ever answered specifically about it. So I recommend everybody go watch that clip from the Majority Report. There's a couple other clips of crazy QAnon callers calling him and him getting weirded out and just like ignoring what they're saying. But that's not the one I'm talking about. This is one that's very specific where he directly says QAnon is a cult. He says it, I mean, it's unmistakable. I think it was from the Majority Report from maybe 2 weeks ago. So if you go to the Majority Report's newest uploaded videos, you can find it if you sort by like date uploaded. Do not use YouTube search engine anymore to find shit. It is absolutely broken, worthless. YouTube has ruined all of their search engine to such a degree where it's like fucking stupid what they've done. So like even if you type Pizzagate hashtags into YouTube now, you get all these Hillary Clinton videos from like CBS News and ABC News, and it's like, what are you guys doing? Are you idiots? So you've ruined the search engine to make it so that you can't even find Pizzagate stuff anymore. But yet the Pizzagate hashtags go to Hillary Clinton mainstream news videos. Like, what the fuck is, what happened to your algorithm, dude? Like, what a bunch of weird bullshit. Like, it's actually, it just seems like such weird stuff going on there. You can't find even anything of, like, try typing American Anthrax now into YouTube. There's only one other video called American Anthrax on YouTube. Yet, when you type American Anthrax on YouTube, my documentary comes up now on like the third page or something. It doesn't even make sense. It's deliberately being buried in the search results. I'm not pulling a Dave Rubin. I'm not saying that I'm being shadow banned when I'm not really am. It's blatantly obvious that YouTube has hidden, deliberately deranked pretty much any content that I've put out, that Abby's put out, and that Media Roots has put out. Empire Files, some of those episodes seem to maybe go above a certain threshold of view counts where there maybe pop up more on search results, but I even noticed that Abby's videos do not pop up to the degree that they should when you type them. And it's not just us. And this is not like us being selectively targeted. It's anybody who does anything having to do with anything conspiratorial, conspiracy culture related, talking about 9/11, talking about Gaza or Israel too much, those things are, you get flagged. Yeah, Ned, it's true. Twitter blocked Abby from my feed as well. Very strange. Abby's not. So actually, you know what? I'm gonna go to this website because there's a website where apparently you can see what you're shadow banned for specifically on Twitter. Okay, so there's a website called shadowban.eu. I don't know if it's good, but I'm gonna type Abby's name right now on it. It's doing. So according to shadowban.eu, Abby doesn't have any restrictions right now, but they don't list in terms of no main feed, like hiding it on the main feed. It appears that Abby's tweets are not visible unless you go to her feed or unless someone retweets her that isn't limited or somehow on Twitter. I don't see Abby's tweets anymore unless I go to her home feed. But when you search my Twitter handle, this only actually happened. Somebody let me know that this happened after the QAnon ban hammer. Somehow I have been caught up to some extent in this new wave of bannings, even though my Twitter account is still there. I'll just explain to you what the website says. So it says that my handle exists. That's one of their criteria. No search suggestion ban. So that means that, like, if you, like, it will randomly shuffle me sometimes through follower suggestions, I think. So I'm not banned from that. I have no reply deboosting, whatever that means. I'm not exactly sure. No ghost ban, meaning I'm okay there. Interesting. But it does say that I am actually affected by what is called a search ban. It says we did not find a tweet by searching for from : at Fluorescent Grey. It says this type of ban causes your tweets to be hidden from the search results entirely, no matter whether the quality filter is turned on or off. This behavior includes hashtags as well. This type of ban seems to be temporarily limited for active accounts. So I don't know how long this has been going. Somebody only noticed it on my account after the QAnon ban hammer thing went down. So, I mean, I don't know why I didn't talk about this more being an inevitable result of QAnon, but I probably should have, because if something's Pied Pipering the entire conspiracy movement and they've just taken an oath and people are just starting to wake up to the fact that this is possibly part of the Trump campaign, do you notice that there's less talk right now about people being like, oh, this is a crazy LARP, who are these crazy pranksters, and more seriousness about it? Do you notice that? It's because people understand on a gut level that this does have something to do with the Trump campaign. Meaning, even if nobody can prove this, I can't prove it, that Trump or his people are involved in this. I can't prove it. But I think we all know now. I mean, I'm assuming you guys maybe feel the same gut feeling that Trump's people has something to do with QAnon on some level. Who it is, how many people, how closely it's associated with Trump, I have no idea. But I mean, I believe that Twitter, the only benefit of the doubt I'm going to give Twitter, and I'm not making any excuses for them at all. I think it was a terrible, terrible decision to do this. It's only going to embolden Q. And I don't believe in this kind of censorship either. I think that it's, even though they're a private company, I just think it's a stupid idea. And I just think it's also unfair. But The only reason I could see Twitter doing this soon, we're only 3.5 months away from the election. They just got a major hack data breach of 35 like celebrity big accounts. From Twitter's perspective, they're not going to ban the president's account. They know that the president moving forward in this 3.5 month time frame. Think about this. 3.5 months to the general election. That's ridiculously small amount of time we have left here. Trump is going to try to pull out, and his campaign, his people are going to try to pull out whatever tricks they can in that 3.5 month time period to win this election. Based on what they did last time, Pizzagate, I think we can expect something just as crazy this time. Q would fit into what that could be. So if Twitter is looking at this from the perspective of Trump could tweet some of the craziest shit, he could say he's not accepting the election results, we're not going to take his account away. Adam Kurkowski, I was not in favor of banning Alex Jones. I was not. I'm in favor of banning people who are more performative, people who are just doing things to get banned. Like Milo Yiannopoulos. I feel that he was a kamikaze. Milo Yiannopoulos was, I believe, was some kind of kamikaze plant designed to just go out there and create all this fake dialogue about bannings over things like, being a crypto Nazi and stuff. I still think those people at Berkeley, honestly, some of them are right-wing agitators. Oh yeah, if you ask a question in here, I'm going to answer it unless you specify that it's for someone else. So just be aware of that, Adam. So I think Twitter is thinking, they must be thinking this is very dangerous. This could severely disrupt the 2020 election in some way. We need to do something to stop it. And I think that I am assuming that was their rationale. That's the most charitable rationale I can give them. That's it. Other than that, I think it makes no sense. Banning hashtags, or not banning hashtags, but they are doing that also, but banning URLs in private direct messages, I think is a really, really drastic step. Because at this point, I want to know immediately if QAnon has declared some kind of death threat against someone that I know, or if it's declaring violence. I want to know the instant that happens. If I can't share a URL of a Q posting in a DM with somebody now, that's actually putting people's lives oddly at risk, I think. I mean, especially if Q goes full violent, declaring people to pick up arms. Yes, Tom Collector. If you try to type right now, try this yourselves if all you guys use Twitter. There is a very popular QAnon website. It's not affiliated with Q. It's just a fan of Q that coalesces all the Q postings into an easy-to-read format. The website URL is qmap.pub. P-U-B. When you type that URL into a direct message on Twitter, it will not let you send it. It says that this link has been blocked for spam or malicious content. To me, that's a really, really drastic step. I don't agree already with them banning it from anywhere on the public Twitter feeds. I actually kind of agree with banning accounts. So if someone is just, all they do is making threats, vague threats, TikTok, you're going to be discovered as a pedo, that kind of shit, yeah, ban those stupid assholes. I mean, are they contributing anything? I think the only people that you don't want to ban are the people who are like moving this train so that you can track them and study what they're doing. Because if you don't have the ability to study or to look at someone like that Tommy G Twitter account and to see like the scope and what he's pushing and how many people he's having influence over, it actually makes it makes you less equipped to fight against this. So that's the part that I think is really bad, is that if you're coming at this from an art of war perspective, you need to know your enemy. And if your enemy is Q supporters and QAnon people, you're not going to be able to know them if they're just all banned and disappeared and all these like figureheads from the movement are gone. I mean, it's going to be more difficult to understand where they're coming from and where their movements are going to go. So that's the part that I think is a really bad move here. To me, it gives Q more of an ability to operate in stealth. I think it's actually a much better idea to make them to not have them operate in the shadows so that we can all see this shit and understand it. Unbuttered Toast says Q got banned because they kept threatening Chrissy Teigen. That is part of it, Unbuttered Toast. I think that was something that brought some of the Q stuff into the news again. I do not believe at all that that's why they got banned. Even if Twitter says that in a press release, I don't believe that was the reason. I think that was the excuse to ban people, because they could say your targeted harassment on a female celebrity of color. It's a very sort of convenient narrative for them to just be like, yeah, Q's banned. Absolutely don't think that's why they banned it at all. I think they banned it because they understand how powerful of a tool it's going to be used for Trump in the 2020 election, as most people in the media landscape should already know, unless they're fucking naive or not paying any attention at all. And as I said on my last episode of Media Roots Radio, I was contacted by someone affiliated with the DNC and Media Matters, and they DM'd me on Twitter and said, hey, what proof do you have that Q is connected to the Trump campaign? We're looking into this. We can't prove it. We don't know how to come out with it. There, people that I know don't know how to come out with this idea that we believe Trump's involved. It's hard to prove. But the reason I told that story on the last podcast is not to throw these people under the bus, even though fuck the DNC and Media Matters overall. I mean, these people are fucking clowns, and the DNC is really corrupt. But what it told me is that these people have been sleeping on the fact that they knew how dangerous QAnon was for a whole goddamn year. That shit's scary. To think that they knew on some gut level how, that this could have actually been connected to the Trump campaign or Trump's people, and they haven't said anything about it. They don't know what to say about it. That's actually kind of frightening. That's bizarre. So I don't know. I mean, so I think honestly some of this new media explosion and attention towards QAnon is because they finally figured out a way. Okay, maybe they finally felt safe to talk about it. Finally felt safe to be like, oh, here's Flynn doing the oath. Here's Richard Grenell. So even a reporter like Will Summer now, who's covering Q. Maybe 6 months ago, if you asked him, do you think Q is a LARP? Do you think it's just a pure prank? He would have been like, yeah. If you ask Will Summer now what he thinks of Q, I have a feeling his answer would be different. He'd be like, I don't know exactly what it is, but there are people, high-level Trump officials, who are not just embracing it, but are promoting it. And that raises new questions about what exactly the fuck this is. I mean, I'm totally putting words in his mouth, but you just undeniable at this point. Seb Gorka is the only Trump person on record to dispute the QAnon narrative, even though he is blatantly lying and covering for Michael Flynn for some reason. That raises new questions. Actually, why would he just not be like, I don't know what that was? That would have still been a lie. Of course he knows what it was, but to utterly deny it, very strange. But Richard Grenell, the guy who had a casual phone chat relationship with Trump plant grifter Fairbanks. Anybody who out there who still thinks Fairbanks is an honest operator or isn't a plant, all you have to do is look at her relationship with Richard Grenell. Like, what the fuck? What indie journalist has a casual phone relationship with a high-level Trump official? Like, what? She's a plant. So, anyways, this guy, Richard Grenell, he tweeted to Christy Teigen mocking her, that she was like basically like whining and acting like really, unnecessarily upset over this. And it's actually the left that is dangerous or something to that effect. So here's Richard Grenell, one of the former top Trump advisors, who's still in Trump's government, by the way, telling a high-profile celebrity on Twitter that she's whining, that it's actually her side that's dangerous, and he's doing this in response to her talking about QAnon. He's actually expressing anger that QAnon got banned on Twitter. In a follow-up tweet, Richard Grenell actually does even worse. Richard Grenell then quote tweets a high-profile QAnon grifter personality named Jordan Sather, basically like saying something like Q people are not that bad, or I don't remember the exact tweet, but again, it's more evidence that this is connected on some level to the Trump campaign. Yeah, JNNX. I do think Steve Pitenik is one of the major architects of the Q con. 100%. 100%. I don't mean to upset you guys, and this is already upsetting for me. I am having a difficult time finding the full version of American Bisque. I'm worried that I lost it somehow in a hard drive crash or something. So if anybody happened to have downloaded that, please send it my way. I thought that I definitely saved a copy of it somewhere, but I still cannot find it. So I'm a little worried. I still have the part 3 of it uploaded on YouTube, which is good. But the whole thing, it's like 3.5 hours long. So I guess just back to that thing I was saying a little bit earlier about how someone affiliated with Media Matters, DNC, reached out to me. There's no excuse in the world why the Democrats, why reporters affiliated with Media Matters, why these people have slept on this for so long. Other than fear of ridicule, like if they took any speculative leaps with these theories about who Q might be, or fear of being targeted by QAnons. Hey, Tara. Are you on a delay? Oh no, you're just responding to the American Bis thing. I think, as I said on the podcast, I think the only reason I got on Media Matters radar at all was because of my work on Alex Jones. Somebody who wrote an article about Alex Jones quote tweeted me, or like put one of my tweets in one of the Media Matters article, and I remember thinking it was very odd. And I remember thinking, do they not know? Have they not been to the rest of my tweet or seen the rest of my tweets? This is probably not a great idea for them to put my tweet on this article. Ned, I don't care for Ben Swan. I'll just say it straight up. I have no problem saying that at all. I think he, he got some big gets. Like he got to interview Obama for a second. He's been sort of in the world of media long enough where he's done some things that I think has some importance to them. But I just think that he's just too baited by like the patriot movement, like right libertarian, like MAGA virus at this point. I mean, I really respect people who are able to like ride out the storm, so to speak, and who don't like change their views depending on the way other people change their views. So I see what Ben Swan does is just totally blew in the wind, totally went along with the sort of political climate of that world that he comes from, instead of like being a modus operandi. Ben Swan just did a video about how masks don't work. Yeah, that's so that's what I'm talking about. I think he's just a total hack. Total fucking hack. That's really pathetic. It's just, these people show their true colors at a certain point. It's like Michael Tracy. He's eloquent. He's articulate. He acts like he's not going along with the status quo. But then, yet, when he rips off wholesale a tweet from Andy No, like 100% lifts a tweet from Andy No to make the same dumb fake point. It's just like, oh wow, so you have no vision whatsoever. You're just literally ripping off other people's tweets. It's just really pathetic to me. Oh, that's a bummer to hear. Yeah, the mask stuff to me is just totally planted. It's got to be. I mean, because look, everyone needs money. Everyone needs healthcare right now. That's indisputable. If it wasn't for all this political noise happening right now in the United States, that's where everybody's head would be at. How am I going to survive? How am I going to eat? How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay for my kids? Instead, it's just like conservatives have been like manipulated and like fucking head fucked to the point where all they care about is things opening back up again soon. And masks being some kind of conspiracy. And it's like, it's just like, wow. Like, I honestly do feel very sorry for where their head is at right now, because they're being totally manipulated. John Gold says, they made the virus into a partisan issue just like 9/11. Well, John, what's interesting is I felt for the first time in a long time the mainstream media was hammering Trump in the correct way, meaning they were pointing out clear examples of how he dropped the ball on the pandemic, how he did all these crazy things to delay the response, how he just gave up all the responsibility to the states and barely lifted a finger. I mean, all that stuff was true. But what we saw was, once that media narrative started to become too real and too undeniable, the right-wing media sphere flipped a switch and went full, like hardcore denial, attack, Roy Cohn counterpunch, like from all sides at it. Did you notice that conservative media actually for a time started to get more serious about the virus when Trump was still not taking it seriously, even including Tucker, Laura Ingraham, some of the mainstream Fox News reporters? And they started to push back a little bit against Trump. They were trying to get him to, I don't know. I mean, not that they started to turn on him, but it wasn't until that media narrative against Trump really grew to a level where it's like, man, he's really fucking up. Like, this is going to look terrible for him. What the hell's going on? That the right was just like, boom, we got to counterpunch this. We just got to bury this narrative because Yeah, and that's what they did. And I think at that moment, that's when it became severely partisan. Actually, this is an instance where I do not blame the mainstream media's partisan attacks on Trump, because at that moment, they perfectly fit in line with reality. It sort of went beyond partisanship. It's like, yeah, they already hate Trump. They're already partisan, all this partisan hatred of him. But this was a clear example where he totally fucked up. 100%. And I think that that's when you started to see the right media turn other people, other faces in this situation into the main enemies on purpose. Fauci, the governors, for example. And even though Cuomo is doing a horrible job in New York and he's got his own terrible, things to account for, it's just fascinating to me how, if you actually look at how this whole thing was set up, it really does seem like even the strategy to blame the governors for fucking up was like done on purpose by the Trump administration. It's actually like all laid out in a timeline, how they didn't want to take responsibility and they wanted to put the responsibility individually on the states, but they still did not provide the states the resources that they needed. So it was almost like a setup, I think. And, this idea now, this conspiracy narrative that's really actually becoming eerily popular. Like, I even saw Thaddeus Russell, who I think is a very smart dude, repeating this on Twitter, and he never says conspiratorial things like this, so I was quite shocked that he said he believes that he thinks there's going to be a videotape coming out soon of a Democratic politician admitting that lockdowns are to keep the economy tanking so that Trump looks bad. And when I saw that tweet of his, I'm like, wow, like Thaddeus Russell's head is already there too. That he actually has bought into this narrative that the lockdowns are being politically driven to make Trump look bad, not politically driven by other huge issues. Like, not politically driven by governors trying to do this balancing act between not wanting more people to die and not wanting people to be out of work and to starve and for their businesses to close. Like, there's political fallout on both sides of that. Every governor right now is making that decision of how they want to experience that political fallout. They're going to get fallout either way. So to say that their main political motivation for keeping their own states locked down is to crash the economy of the United States so that Trump looks bad, so that he loses the election, is absolutely fucking nuts to me. And to me, it really does show how much these sort of watered down, weird partisan conspiracy theories that frankly smell like Q, smell very much like Q, has gotten into the heads of very smart people. That to me is actually disturbing. I don't understand that because it just does not hold up to basic logic. That idea. So I'm frankly just blown away. Smells like Q spirit. It does. I mean, it does a little bit. But on the other hand, I could understand why people have theories about what's going on. I mean, it is a really crazy situation. It totally is. Terror Toddler. I mean, I think that's more likely. If there is any motivation that's like conspiratorial by these politicians to keep things locked down, it would be to allow corporations to like buy shit like in a fire sale. It would be to allow their rich friends and colleagues and donors to be able to swoop in and buy things, foreclosures, whatever, during this situation like a fire sale. There are already people gaming this whole thing out. People are evil. Capitalism is evil. There's no doubt that people have already gamed out all this shit. And that's going to be, I think, the real conspiracy when this is all over. Unless somebody did release this virus as a means to gain some kind of geopolitical foothold. I don't know. people would probably say, "Oh, China is a likely culprit." Um, oh yeah, Joseph Holleran. Oh, Holleran. Yeah, Fauci has a very, very bad history. I think Fauci is a total monster. No one stays in government that long. No one's involved in the CDC that long unless they're a corrupt motherfucker. However, Joseph, one interesting thing that I find about that is I actually see Trump supporters blaming Fauci for the AIDS crisis and then kissing Reagan's rotting corpse butt cheek on a daily basis. It's like, well, Reagan played a huge role in that too, right? Oh, I forgot. It's only about bashing the people that Trump opposes. So you just parrot any enemy, any villain in this story that Trump or Q doesn't like. You don't actually have a consistent view on who's corrupt or complicit. Because Reagan is a hero, according to Trump and Q. The neocon senile puppet Ronald Reagan, the B-movie actor, he's a patriot. So that's what's fascinating to me about that is, sadly, the Fauci AIDS thing got resurrected to me, came onto my purview again because of QAnon and Plandemic. And that's a right-wing movie. And doesn't talk about how Reagan or anybody else in the Reagan administration was complicit. Just Fauci, conveniently just Fauci. It's like, what a pile of shit this movie is. MAGA dumbasses made this bullshit. Trying to omit Reagan. I mean, it's just such childlike crap. Gain of function research is a good debate, says Joseph O'Halloran. I think it is a good debate to have, Joseph. And I'm still struggling to find somebody to have that debate with who isn't an anti-China xenophobe, neocon-baited idiot. Blasting these snowstorm media posts with pseudoscience in them that are like 100 pages long, peppered with anti-China propaganda that's been planted in the media. I'm looking for someone who doesn't get baited by that stuff. Someone who's interested in the idea this is created in a lab, but isn't baited by planted anti-China propaganda in the news right now. It's actually very difficult to find. And it's unfortunate because this is a debate that needs to be had. We do need to talk about this. But I'm more interested in having the debate from the perspective of, we don't know patient 0 came from Wuhan. We don't know patient 0 came from China. So unless you can prove to me, so if your thesis is that you know for sure patient 0 came from Wuhan or came from China, then I actually am not interested in your science because from what I understand, the verdict is actually still out on that. So to lean all that on that, to me kind of shows a little bit what you've already been baited by, but worse, to then take the leap of being like, all these cell phone records in China disappeared. Here's this thermal hotspot showing that they might be secretly cremating bodies. Any of these gain of function breakdown Medium posts that talk about any of that shit, throw it right in the fucking trash can. Because that's just like if someone was trying to write some 100-page Medium post about Iraq with shit about Saddam's non-existent anthrax program or his mobile biological weapons lab. You'd throw that out in the trash too, right? So I recommend trying to have the same skeptical eye when looking at this gain of function COVID-19 lab created stuff. I would say 90% of it is mixed together with anti-China propaganda already. So try to find that 10% slice out there that's not. It's actually very difficult to find it. Meryl Nass, Sam Husseini. There's been some other people who've been covering it from that angle that don't pepper it with planted neocon anti-China propaganda. So I would recommend going there instead. And of course, Brett Weinstein, who I've been complaining about on this feed for a little bit, interviewed Yuri Degan, a guy who wrote one of these 100-page snowstorm Medium postings about coronavirus being created in a lab. So he picked a guy who was just already peppering his whole article with anti-China propaganda, sort of just like you would expect. Oh yeah. Yep. I completely agree with you. Someone said I am skeptical of Medium in general. The establishment seems to be using it more and more. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because they understand that mainstream media is not the way to usually plant sort of conspiratorial narratives that they want to get to float. So like all that COVID-19 gain of function stuff in those Medium postings, honestly, that's just a sus red flag to me. Where it's like, the media is acting like this is not a real thing, but I'm going to lay out for you 100 pages of how I think this was lab created. That is very suspicious to me. Oh wow, this is just like on the screen the whole time. It's funny. I'm just gonna go back to like the splash screen or whatever. Yeah, we'll have this pretty anime playing in the background. Ned, only on Twitter, and I think that it kind of came at a sad or weird time because I think I got sort of shadow banned at the same time on Twitter. So I did get like about 1,000 new followers, but I think that whatever that Q mass shadow banning or banning has also affected me at the same time. Right now, I mean, John, I think in terms of food, it wasn't a money issue for me before that food became scary, like food situation. It was that the supply chains seemed to be getting like totally slammed. And I was quite concerned that that was going to continue. It seems like for most products, it's not affected anymore, which is actually like a big relief. I mean, that was to me one of the scariest aspects of this whole thing. So I don't know where it is for other people right now, but in California where I live right now, it's not the food supply line chains is not an issue. Shipping things is still an issue. I've had crazy long shipping delays. Like ordering something from overseas right now took like 3 months, something like that to get. Even domestic shipping very slow. But so I know I didn't get into the main topic for today. I mean, Jesus Christ. We've got to talk about China. I mean, there's so much happening right now. And it's scary because yeah, UPS is a total disaster, Michael. I almost got some negative feedback on Reverb because people were just like, "What the hell, dude? You bought a shipping label and you haven't shipped it yet. Like, what's going on?" And it just said, label printed but not tracking yet for like 2 weeks after I dropped it off. And I just I always felt so bad because, but it finally started tracking. So it seems like right now USPS is better than UPS in terms of speed. I'd really like to see Michael Brooks' book. Oh, and just really quickly, I wanted to give you guys an update. So I've slightly changed my opinion on Brett Weinstein. Not that I don't think he's a grifter or a fraud, but someone brought to my attention last night that there's a documentary, and it's a very long documentary, and I don't care for the guy's perspective that made the documentary. It's biased, about what happened at Evergreen College when Brett Weinstein was teaching there. It's like a 5-hour long documentary, and it's kind of fascinating. only because I have been sort of studying and looking into like the original Berkeley free speech protests and like the protest movements here in the Bay Area, People's Park, all that stuff. And the difference in quality, I will just say, of the protests. Like, there are so many scenes of these protesters at Evergreen where they literally don't, like, their demands are extremely unclear. It's not just that their behavior and the way that they act is like really over the top. There are multiple factors in it. Is that the college had let their people totally stand down, no security. They let the protesters like disrupt like every single like event you could possibly imagine, and just like let them take the mic like every time. So the staff definitely like set a precedent where they just like completely caved to protesters that essentially had like no clear demand. It's very odd to watch. So Brett Weinstein, I guess, got caught up in the early stages of this. Is that in Olympia, Michael? That's where that is? I mean, I don't know any of these people. I've never met any of them, but my perception of them is that they were a lot of mentally ill people. A lot of mentally ill, narcissistic people who somehow intimidated, or they got into like an authoritative position among this activist movement. That happens sometimes in other movements or whatever, but when you actually see this compared to like other street protests you've been to or other activist sit-ins or anything like that, there's a very, very stark difference, where it does kind of show you what can happen if like an enigmatic sort of culty group of leaders try to take over like a college protest. So that's what it felt like to me. It really almost has like little to do with social justice. Like, I don't even really see this, what happened in Evergreen, as like an example that you can apply to other places around the country. So that's what's interesting about it, is it's like a particularly crazy example. And as Michael just pointed it out, Evergreen seems very prone to this kind of stuff. It is in Olympia, or it is in that, it is in the Pacific Northwest, and it's very interesting. So to me it kind of puts a whole new spin on Brett Weinstein. Like, he can effectively use what happened in Evergreen to scare right wingers, because it does seem crazy, it does seem over the top, and that's what he's done. The false part of the narrative to me that is actually like really damaging is that he has gotten people to believe that this is the climate at all college campuses around the country. I can very much assure you that it is not. It's very different. Even from like some of the most extreme social justice warrior shout downs, kind of thing like that happens at college campuses. This makes Berkeley look like the most like right-wing hoity-toity thing that you've ever seen. So that's one thing I think that's really dishonest about what Brett Weinstein is doing, is he's not making it clear to the rest of the country that Evergreen in particular is like a really big like hot spot for sort of this like totally chaotic, nonsensical, sort of enigmatic cult leader hijacking of like weaponized identity politics to form some kind of nonsensical activist movement. That is not what's happening at other college campuses to the degree this is. I mean, so it's interesting to check out that documentary. It was interesting for me to check out because I had only seen the videos of Brett, like arguing with students, which don't really seem particularly that bad to me by themselves. But when you watch the video of like the student dean and the president of the dean just like letting these group of protesters take the mic like every single time they just like walk into the room, like when he's talking, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, you remember when people like thought Bernie looked weak from letting the Black Lives Matter protester take the podium? It's like that, but like times like 100. Like this guy at Evergreen, I don't know if he's still there, but like it's just a strange thing to witness. I don't know what the documentary is called, actually, Modus. But what's interesting to me now, I'm more actually interested in his brother Eric Weinstein. So I think Brett is doing bad things. I mean, he's definitely putting out sort of weird ideas. He is very conservative. I mean, he does say things like, what did he say on one of his podcasts? He said that polyamory was bad because it hurts children, which is interesting to me because there's plenty of people who practice polyamory who have children. It's just, to me, it's just a reflection of this conservative inability to try to implement in things and change with like society. It's like, instead of saying that polyamory hurts children and making that sort of your authoritative declaration, why not use your intellect, Mr. Rational, intellectual academic, to actually map out some healthy ways that you can have children in a polyamorous situation? Meaning, if you're raising children and you're in a polyamorous relationship, open marriage, open relationship, whatever, like why wouldn't he try to do that instead of just being like, it's bad? To me, that's just a reflection of how he really is just a conservative. He's not a classical liberal or whatever. That's not to say that he's a racist, like his students were saying. That's, to me, is not the issue with him. It's that I feel that he's sort of become, and him and his brother have sort of become the de facto figureheads of the intellectual dark web. They present as being liberal. They don't present as being right-wing. But Eric Weinstein in particular is really interesting to me because apparently he's got a very fleshed out theory on quantum physics about this 24th dimensional quantum physics theory that he came up with. Now, actually, what's interesting is ever since I put out a tweet saying, send me a DM of any dirt you have on Brett and Eric Weinstein, the most interesting thing I was sent by far was something I totally did not expect, where someone in the field of quantum physics research and academia told me that Eric Weinstein's theories are bunk and that he is merely presenting himself as a quantum physics expert in order to steal other people's theories. And apparently, this is what I was told. I don't know if this is true. I am using your talking points, Tom. Well, am I using your talking point, Tom, or did you actually, I mean, we've talked about this issue. I don't know if we've talked about that specific solution or what Brett should talk about instead. Maybe we did. So yes, I had this conversation with Tom already about it. Adam Karkowski says he just doesn't want polyamory to exist. He's not arguing in good faith. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think it's mostly just him being conservative. Okay, it would be interesting to hear what we haven't heard a lot of what these people think about pornography, about drugs, about sex work. To me, those are really interesting issues because that's something that libertarians are actually really good on. So I would like to see Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein reveal their feelings on those things to see how many followers they lose. Because they're trying to do a little grift where they're sort of like appealing to the like left libertarians, they'll say. Well, if you're a libertarian, then you should actually want to legalize sex work and drugs. I have a feeling Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein would have some things to say about that. Joseph O'Halloran. No, I understand that. I wasn't talking about you, Joseph. The anti-Fauci stuff, yes, I do understand that it goes back quite a while. I was more responding to the Plandemic movie that got very popular on the right and among Q supporters that only blamed Fauci for the AIDS crisis, that only blames Fauci for the COVID ball dropping. I find that to be a manipulative, limited hangout that serves partisan purposes. That's all I was saying, Joseph. I wasn't talking about your reason for bringing up Fauci. Sometimes I'll go off on a total tangent here when someone brings up a person, and I don't mean to make it sound like I'm personally sort of responding to what you're saying about it. It just gets me thinking, of feelings I already have about it. Oh, interesting, JNNX. What have they said? I'm curious. What have they said about them? Adam Karkowski, libertarians aren't good on porn, they're good on sex work, meaning they very much believe in the rights of people to sell their bodies for money. And they believe that that should be legalized. When it comes to like their moral view on porn, I'm sure some libertarians are like, man, this is bad, this is, harmful to women or whatever. They might have a more puritanical view on it, and they probably would. But I think from a legal freedom perspective, they're very, very pro porn, pro any form of sex work. Because if you believe porn should be legal, why would you not believe that any form of sex work should be legal? I think it's weird because porn was going to be made illegal in the United States under the sort of prostitution laws at the time. They were going to try to treat every porn star as a John and every porn actor. All right, I don't know how they were going to do it exactly, but they were going to try to make porn illegal based on prostitution laws. It didn't end up getting through, and it now has sort of a legal separation from that, but I don't really see the legal separation. I don't personally understand how there is a separation. To me, it's the same thing. Any sex worker would admit to that, I believe, that doing pornography is not that much different from doing forms of prostitution. So unbuttered toast. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Unbuttered Toast says they are okay with CP, though. I don't believe you. They would not have any right-wing followers anymore if they made some kind of pro-child pornography argument. That'd be hilarious. Okay. Well, Oz whistles. I mean, the term is strange maybe to you, but anything could be work. The term, I think the term is sort of meant to shift the dialogue, but like anything could be a form of work. Any skill, anything. Trish, I'm a little bit upset actually at the Ron Paul crowd right now. I didn't fully realize how dangerous Michael Scheuer was until he fully endorsed Q. This is the former CIA Bin Laden station chief who is married to Alfreda Burkowski, one of the torture architects during the Bush administration, who was portrayed in Zero Dark 30. I didn't realize how truly dangerous this guy was until he fully endorsed Q. And then I remembered, Trish, that Michael Scheuer was actually an advisor for Ron Paul during his presidential campaigns. And once I remembered that, it kind of just started making me angry that I just can't trust that crowd anymore. I'm just going to say here, I can't. Because if you're working with Michael Scheuer, if you have some kind of relationship with a guy who is a former CIA agent, saying Q is real, it's coming for everybody, the leftists are going to go be sent to prison, they're scum. I mean, that's really bad. So, I actually kind of concerns me if they're even remotely associated with him still. So I'm not offended, John. I'm not offended at all by if you want to use a term like hooker, maybe other people might be. Some people, when they listen to Media Roots, they've gotten offended when I've used the term attention whore because they believe I'm using sort of the term whore negatively. I mean, yes, yes, the term attention whore is negative. It's not a reference to actual sex workers or prostitution. So I don't really care what kind of words you want to use, John. Like, I don't get offended by that kind of stuff usually. I get offended by people pushing anti-Chinese propaganda and trying to pretend it's not. That's the kind of stuff I get offended by. I get offended by people acting like they care about Nike sweatshop labor right now, who only started caring last week because Josh Hawley and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz wanted to start talking about it to bash China. I get offended by people who want to bring me that bullshit. I usually don't get offended by authenticity in any form, even if it's an offensive kind of it. I get offended by phoniness. That's what offends me the most. Speaking of phoniness, I'm just going to rant a little bit about an institution that I love, Red Bull. Red Bull announces new grants for Oakland artists. This is announced on KQED, July 22nd. It says, Red Bull is going to be giving 2 artists a month $1,000 through the end of the year. And this will be Oakland and 20 other cities. So they're going to, I think it's mostly musicians. Here's the part that I got kind of worried about. A panel of artists and activists from each city will review and select the grantees. Well, here's the problem with that. This panel in Oakland will be comprised of people who are friends with tons of people in the scene already. It's such an incestuous scene that it's actually might even be difficult for these people not to give money to people that they know in their personal life and that they're not already biased to give it to. So what I'm saying is, let's hope that this doesn't have the appearance of being just an incestuous, I'm giving money to my friends who I've already known for years situation. I hope that's not the case, because I'm going to be looking at this when this is done, and I just hope it's not super obvious. If it's not super obvious and it seems maybe like that happened, I'll probably let it go. But if it's not and it seems really obvious, I'm going to talk about it. I just hope that's not the case. So that's my Red Bull rant. And I'm gonna finish off this broadcast talking about the new Cold War. And I know that was what I promised I was going to talk about. But let's talk about the situation happening with the Chinese consulates right now, and Chinese embassies. So this all, think about this. So Crimea was annexed in 14, late 2014 or early 2015. We started already funding the troops in Ukraine. There was already U.S. involvement in that. The coup itself had U.S. fingerprints on it. It took about a year or almost 2 years, a year and a half, for us to go from a proxy war with Russia to actually kicking them out of the consulate or closing down their consulates here. So I feel that this situation with China is escalating quicker and more under the radar in a scarier way to some degree than the Russia thing was, because we're already at the point now where the U.S. has actually ordered the closure of a U.S. or a Chinese consulate in Houston, Texas. So let me show you guys what's going on. So it's already become a standoff. So apparently, a couple days ago, the United States ordered within 72 hours the Houston Chinese consulate must close. People started seeing them burning paperwork. There was a bunch of smoke coming out of their chimney. which is actually pretty typical of any consulate that is forced to close. They do keep sensitive information. They do keep a lot of paperwork, and their only option is usually to burn it in a quick and fast manner, because shredding it would take too much time, and the authorities, once they come in, are going to have they're going to be able to seize all that property. So, people are already being like, well, China's trying to hide something. It's not any different than what would happen if any consulate was forced to close by a government, saying you have to close within 72 hours, get out of here. But the just the fact that we're already closing down consulates and we're threatening consulates is really a drastic move. And I remember for years, so the Chinese consulate in San Francisco, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it's right near I want to say Bimbo's. It's right near a popular rock venue, and it's also right near Cobb's Comedy Club. So it's like kind of in North Beach in San Francisco. And it's always looked very, very secure. Like, I remember when I would walk by it, I'd be like, oh, damn, this is like the most secure looking like building that's just like right out on the street that I've ever seen in San Francisco. It's got these giant impaling spike gates. It's got these looks like it has like armored walls and like a wall around it. It's got a lot of metal all over it. And I remember always thinking, like, growing up when I would pass by this, why on earth would China's consulate be so secure? And now I know. I learned yet last night why. Because the United States government is demanding the arrest of someone they're calling a fugitive who is now inside the San Francisco Chinese consulate. And they are demanding also the closure of it if they do not release this so-called fugitive. And they're claiming also, this is their narrative, that this Chinese fugitive lied about being part of the Chinese military while immigrating to the United States. And because of that, that's enough of a crime that they now have an arrest warrant out for them. And that this person has some connection to biological science. So all the dots are there for the Trumpers and all the QAnoners or whoever to be like, this person had something to do with leaking COVID-19. China is hiding them, protecting them in the San Francisco embassy. It's the narrative coming out of the news is not exactly saying that. But if you read what the FBI fed to the news about this, because the FBI is the source of this, saying that this woman is hiding in the embassy and she has something to do with biological science, she's Chinese military. The FBI is trying to make you connect these dots. They want people to connect these dots. They want the conspiracies to start going. They want to reinforce that narrative that China is behind some kind of biological attack and that they're hiding their own people in our embassies. So I think this is a very dangerous escalation that the FBI is trying to do. I already mentioned on the last Media Roots podcast that Christopher Wray, the current sitting FBI director, is now blatantly lying, going around to think tanks like the Hudson Institute that employs Sagur Enjeti, the co-host of The Hill. Christopher Wray went to the Hudson Institute and for the first time broke the news that 50% of the FBI's counterintelligence investigations are against China. That's his claim, 50%. So I'm a little bit astonished that I don't see anybody like Greenwald or any of these people that used to, talk about how Comey was such a Russiaphobe all the time. I don't see very many of them talking about how Christopher Wray is trying to start a Cold War with China, our active sitting FBI director. I don't see very many people talking about that, and it's confusing to me. I'm actually a little bit worried at this point that maybe some of these people who are debunking Russiagate actually agree with the escalatory situation with China. That they actually agree with Matt Stoller's point of view on China. That somehow they actually think that China does need to be confronted. I don't know what they really think, but it's actually awfully confusing to just see them sort of sit by and say nothing about this escalation. There are some people from the gray zone talking about it, which is good. Some people from Black Agenda Report talking about it. In fact, they're about to do some kind of panel with Margaret Kimberly, Ajuma Baraka, I think Danny Haifong, some other people from Black Agenda Report are going to be doing a big panel about this, I think this Sunday. So besides those people that I just mentioned, I'm seeing a deafening silence from the crowd that was really fixated on how dangerous Russiagate was. I'm seeing a deafening silence from that crowd, and it's really actually disturbing. So I'm a little bit confused, and I'm wondering, are you guys confused about that? Do you think that Greenwald and Taibbi are just really obsessed with the cancel culture thing now, and they don't have time for Cold War 3.0? What do you think it is? Or do you think they just haven't made up their mind on how they feel about it yet? Because that could be another possibility, that maybe they don't know where they land on it yet. Maybe they're confused. Maybe that's the most charitable explanation. So here's from July 22nd, Reuters. China says bomb death threats made against its Washington embassy. Bomb and death threats have been made against the Chinese embassy in Washington. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson I'm going to fuck these up. I'm sorry, guys. Chun Ying said on Wednesday, blaming the U.S. government. As a result of smears and hatred fanned up by the U.S. government, the Chinese embassy has received bomb and death threats, she posted on Twitter after the United States told China to close its consulate in Houston. So that's the Reuters story. It's just talking about her tweet. So they're getting death threats, bomb threats. Not surprising. We already know there's been a rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans, Chinese Americans. So why not against like the embassies? I mean, that kind of makes sense. Jan and X, yes, I have asked them. And unfortunately, Greenwald got very, very upset, very angry. Joseph O'Halloran says Israel Gate needs to be amplified. It's funny. Somebody asked, what's a good way to debunk Q to people who believe in it and think Trump is like this nationalist patriot who's going to save America from the deep state and from the foreign invaders. And I said, one really good way to cut through all that is ask these people, why doesn't Q talk about Sheldon Adelson or Israel? I mean, clearly, if you believe Trump is some kind of nationalist patriot, you clearly are not factoring in the Israel stuff at all. You're clearly ignoring that, because no president in my lifetime, and maybe they has kissed Israel's ass to this degree. So that's an interesting omission that I think Q people really don't have that much to say. Actually, in fact, the only thing Q people have said to me is, well, the Q is saving Israel for last. There's a reason why Q hasn't talked about it. It's saving it for last. Oh, just like Hillary Clinton's arrest is being saved for last. Okay. I mean, it's just more carrot on a stick nonsense. Terror Toddler. Great point. This is interesting, Terror Toddler. Let's think about the people that Q has not gone after. Even people who aren't like Trump people. He hasn't gone after the Kagan family. I actually don't even think Q has gone after any specific neocons, now that I think about it. Has he? What Bush officials has Q gone after? Let's really think about that for a second. You also notice how there was a very popular debunking of Q done by Susie Dawson on Twitter. Got like thousands of retweets, probably more views and more amplification than Whitney Webb's piece debunking Q. You notice how Q never had anything to say about Susie Dawson at all? It's kind of weird, I think. Q responded to Whitney's piece and bashed it in a stupid poem. Ignored the Susie Dawson breakdown. Who else hasn't Q talked about? Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? Also, here's something else interesting. How did Obama not get wrapped up in Pizzagate? Specifically Obama. He's the one ordering all those pizzas, right? He's the one photographed on the Instagram page of James Alefantis playing ping pong in his restaurant, right? Hillary Clinton's not there playing ping pong. Podesta's not there playing ping pong. How did Obama manage to not be targeted as being like one of these main potential pedos? I find that a little bit fascinating because out of any of the politicians who are wrapped up in this, he's the only one photographed on James Alefantis' Instagram page playing ping pong. Makes me think a little bit. I don't know what that means, but it's just a little bit strange. It is a little bit strange. I think Terror Toddler, I don't know if everybody in the chat's quite understanding the point you brought up, but I think I'm really on your wavelength right now with this because this is something I have been thinking about it. It's not just who does Q oppose or who does Q like, it's that who does Q omit completely from the narrative. That's what I'm more interested in right now. Who does Q omit from the narrative? Who's Jimmy? You talking about James Alefantis? Nimchimsky? Is that who you mean? No, Jan and X, no one blocked you. I refer to a lot of people in this chat by the names that I know about them from outside the chat. So I apologize if that's confusing, but I already know several people in this chat from other social media networks. They use different names. A lot of people here do. I'm not going to blow up anybody's name if they don't want to. They can say who they are here if they want. But yeah. And maybe some of you guys already blocked each other for various reasons. That's not my business if you need to do that. So let me just get some other stuff here. So I'll just read you really quickly what the FBI is saying so you can understand how serious this is. Prosecutors allege Tang Wan, a researcher focusing on biology, lied about her connections to the Chinese military in order to obtain entry into the U.S. and has since avoided arrest by taking refuge in the West Coast diplomatic mission. According to court filings, Tang was charged on June 26 with one count of visa fraud. Prosecutors said she concealed her connection to the country's military in her visa application. During an interview with FBI agents on June 20th, Tang denied serving in the Chinese military, claimed she did not know the meaning of the insignia on her uniform, and that wearing a military uniform was required for attendance at FMMU because it was a military school. However, during a search of her residence and electronic media, FBI agents allegedly found further evidence of Tang's PLA affiliation. Following her interview with the Bureau, Tang allegedly fled to the San Francisco consulate, where the FBI assesses she has remained. Interesting. Okay, so the actual article is a little different than what I thought. So the headlines for it led me to believe they were trying to make this into a potential someone who had involvement with research on viruses. That's not actually the narrative here. It's that the FBI is claiming that she was part of a plot by the Chinese government to steal our secrets, which is a recurring theme that the Chinese people are so uninnovative that all they do is steal our secrets, not just military secrets, but like industry secrets, to somehow get a leg up over us in different industries. Now, it is notable that Hawaii, or however you pronounce it, is far more along in like 5G technology than any other company in the world. There's no evidence that they got there by stealing our secrets. I mean, I'm sure any US wonk would tell you there's evidence, but it does appear that China's own innovation is actually getting to a point now where it is of value to the rest of the world. 5G is something that people want worldwide. That alone is actually geopolitically dangerous for the United States. It's threatening. So as you can see, I think that a lot of these shifts are making sense in light of where China's position is now in the world. Even just in terms of their innovation, their technology innovation. Adam Karkowski, how are you so good at pronouncing Chinese? If you grew up in, well, I don't want to say we grew up, but did you take Chinese, or do you have any Chinese friends? Because I'm so bad at it. Like I remember actually when we interviewed Ian Goodrum, he said it, and I actually like practiced with him like for a whole minute to say the word. I could not say it. Huawei. Still doesn't sound Huawei. I feel like, isn't it more Huawei? God damn it. So this is another interesting thing that came out that I think really, really speaks to how false all this is. So Houston police tweet from yesterday says, at 8:25 p.m., our officers responded to a meet the firefighter call to the Chinese Consulate General in Houston building at 3417 Montrose Boulevard. Smoke was observed in an outside courtyard area. Oh, so I guess it actually wasn't from the chimney. I'm confusing that actually with the Russian consulate in San Francisco that was burning things in the chimney. Officers were not granted access to enter the building, and the tweet continues in a second tweet. It says, since HPD is not a lead agency in the matter, no other information is being released by our department at this time. Yeah, so that's not really that noteworthy. But here's Marco Rubio tweeting about this. And I think I lost his better tweet. So he just basically says China's Houston consulate is a massive spy center. Forcing it to close is long overdue. Well, let's extrapolate that narrative of his. Let's just be honest. Probably most consulates or embassies do some form of spying, especially any adversary of the United States. We do the same thing. to any adversary of ours, even countries that aren't adversaries of ours. That's very well known. The part of the Ukrainian coup was being run out of the U.S. embassy by Jeffrey Pyatt. That's already well documented. There was a thing called Tech Camp, sort of a weird techie coup thing of teaching people in Ukraine how to like help push the coup along through the internet. That Jeffrey Pyatt was running through the U.S. embassy. You can look all this up. So the narrative that a consulate is a massive spy center is a totally selective argument. Marco Rubio could say this about any consulate at any time in any country of his choosing. And it would seem plausible just by the mere fact that there is probably some level of spying going at any consulate, that has any adversarial relationship with the United States whatsoever. But you'll see all these these neocon politicians going along with this right now. And hold on, I'm trying to find this one. So this, this goes completely under the radar. The Hong Kong thing seems to be the neoliberal track on how to get people from the left into being concerned about China, into feeling that China is an adversary. The Hong Kong situation seems to be that. So when you actually see a poll come out, and this is from Newsweek, and it's an exclusive poll that they ran. When you see a poll come out saying this, that more Hong Kong residents say the U.S. is a bigger threat than China, I think it's pretty clear that the protest movement is being really, really inflated here. Meaning that the idea that we should care about it is obviously very disingenuous. But I would actually like to see a poll of Hong Kong protesters to see how many of them actually support Trump and want the U.S. to go after China. Because if it's most of them, and they're the ones sort of trying to glue together those narratives, then I think, again, just sort of reveals how this is being manipulated in our news media. I am very much so. So let me actually read the breakdown. Asked whether they would consider the U.S. government to be more of an ally or more of a threat to Hong Kong and its interests, 38% of respondents felt that it was more of a threat, 29% those being more of an ally, and 21% said it was neither. So it's actually very close. 37% of Hong Kong people thought that the Chinese government was a threat. 34% of it thought Beijing was an ally, that China was an ally. That's far higher than the 29% that thought America was an ally. So the gulf is not that huge, but it just is still interesting that more people in Hong Kong feel that the U.S. is a threat than China is. And China is right next door to them. So it is, I think, a very striking thing. Mike Pompeo just gave a speech today on China and what we need to do with China. It was actually happening live as I started this broadcast. So it'll be curious to see how he's inched up the escalatory rhetoric, what he said today. There's probably already headlines about it. Oh, here's some right here I just saw. Communists always lie, Pompeo said. The biggest lie that they tell is to think that they speak for 1.4 billion people who are surveilled, oppressed, and scared to speak out. If the free world doesn't change communist China, it will surely change us. Interesting. That's interesting rhetoric because I actually think that framing is more effective. The idea that, well, even if you don't care about American supremacy and American hegemony sort of declining, you will care if China fills that void and starts influencing the world to be like China. You're going to be upset then. So that actually, I think, is more effective rhetoric than other rhetoric the Trump administration has been using. So I think that that might be the framing we see going forward, is that almost like an admission of the American decline on one side, without saying, you know, America's on decline, guys. So you don't want to be like China, right? You don't want China to get more powerful. Like, that's not what Pompeo is literally overtly saying, but it's kind of in there, in that rhetoric. So another interesting thing that's happening is Australia is also escalating tensions with China, along with the UK. The Australian Navy played down an encounter from a couple days ago, or actually believed to have happened last week, saying Thursday that all interactions with foreign warships throughout the deployment were conducted in a safe and professional manner, having to do with a naval deployment that confronted a Chinese warship. A defense spokesman confirmed that 5 Australian warships transited to the South China Sea independently from 14th to the 18th of July. They were bound for Hawaii to join a U.S.-led military exercise known as RIMPAC. The spokesperson said all interactions with foreign warships were handled safely and professionally. There were routine and professional naval communications and no confrontation. News of the encounter comes after the Trump administration toughened up its position against China's maritime claims in the South China Sea, prompting Beijing to label the U.S. as a troublemaker that was making completely unjustified claims that China was bullying smaller countries in the region. Diplomatic tensions between China and Australia have also been rising, driven by a dispute over Canberra's call for a COVID-19 inquiry. Now, the Australian Prime Minister, if you didn't already know, his best friend is a QAnon supporter. Not just supporter, but blatant, a QAnon follower out in the open on social media. So what's happening here, it's not being spelled out completely, but what's happening here is the Trump administration is using allies, UK and Australia, to try to, as a show of force to China, to show them that the quote-unquote South China Sea is no longer going to be their territory. This is what this is designed to do. It might also be designed to get a Gulf of Tonkin-like incident started. Some kind of provocation. It's designed to intimidate in some fashion. There's an article in The Economist from today that for some reason wasn't loading last time I tried to click it. Let me see if it works now. It's still not loading. But the article looks rather interesting. I mean, I don't care for The Economist, but the article is, in the South China Sea, America is churning waters claimed by China. Let me see if I have any more articles about this. No, I mean, it's just coming from all sides now. I mean, I already talked about how the Uyghur thing, the Trump administration now is using that to sanction Chinese officials. You have all these neocons now talking about the Uyghurs and how much of a humanitarian crisis it is, even though they literally wanted to kill Uyghurs. These same people wanted like Uyghurs to die or be like detained indefinitely. When Obama tried to release some Uyghur prisoners from Gitmo, Frank Gaffney said that it was horrible and they should never be released. And then here he is now saying that the Uyghurs are being persecuted in China and that he wants to save them all. It's the most disingenuous crap ever. But this is going to continue. This seems to be escalating very, very quickly, 3.5 months before an election. To me, that's dangerous. To me, it's also dangerous that we're heading towards an extreme economic downturn that could possibly get as bad as the Great Depression. That was the climate before World War II. I mean, those have been the historical climates before for a major world war or America to desperately get itself into a war. So I really hope that that's not where we're heading. Things are already fucked up enough right now. So let's just hope that's not another thing we have to deal with. I mean, the Trump campaign is going to pull some insane shit. So are the Democrats. They're going to pull some insane shit moving into this presidential election. And I think we just need to be prepared for anything. And I think we need to look at it in terms of the election. Like even that Russian bounty story that came out about withdrawing, that people framed it as this was meant to come out to stop the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. I do not agree that that was the main purpose of it. I think it was meant to try to resurrect Russiagate for the election. It didn't really work, but I think that that was what it was meant to do. It was meant to resurrect the idea that, remember, this is the guy who was a Trump or a Putin Manchurian candidate. He's doing the bidding of Putin. I really don't think, I don't believe that Trump is that serious about ending the Afghanistan war. Where is it on his list of priorities? So I just think that framing needs to go away because we need to talk about the things he's actually prioritizing right now, like escalating World War III with China, instead of making reductive arguments to just dunk on the Democrats, which are so easy to dunk on. They're fucking idiots. They're corrupt as fuck. I mean, how true is it really that they're... I just don't know. I mean, the whole thing is just the debates people are having who should be talking about this China situation right now are just infuriating to me. But I guess that's where I'll leave it for today. I was gonna plan to talk a lot more about China, but I feel like I kind of I'm burnt out already. I got almost, I don't know, how long did we go for? Oh wow, it's almost a 2-hour stream, or over 2 hours. So I guess that's a good amount of time for a MAME Politics episode 81. And as always, if you want to get access to all these episodes after they air, you can do so by becoming a Patreon subscriber of mine at patreon.com/Robbie Martin. And make sure to check out my appearance on Office Hours with Tim Heidecker, Doug Pound, and Vic Berger. And I also went on TrueAnon to talk about QAnon. It's not an unlocked episode yet. You can hear a clip of it online, but it should be unlocked in August. So, and then I also appeared on the... I don't want to get the name wrong because the guy just changed the name of the podcast. He just rebranded it to something else. Let me make sure I get this right. Hold on a second. I don't want to fuck this up. Yes. I just appeared on the This Is Revolution podcast with host Jason, who also had Danny Haifong on as a guest a few weeks ago. Really cool guy. It was more of a sort of a broader discussion on conspiracy theories and sort of distinguishing good conspiracy theories from bad ones, and where conspiracy theories are at right now in the political dialogue. It's actually I really enjoyed it because it wasn't just about QAnon. So I posted that on my Twitter page as well. And if you don't know where to follow me, you can follow me at Fluorescent Grey on Twitter. And remember, the word fluorescent, spell it correctly. What's actually strange to me, I'm a terrible speller, but fluorescent, people correctly spelling the word fluorescent seems to be like a huge problem. A lot of people do not know how to spell the word. So make sure you know how it's spelled. That's my Twitter handle, Fluorescent Grey, Grey, not AY. And Furious Psyop, my favorite drop the whole time during that episode was the Burbs drops of Tom Hanks. Those like almost made me totally lose it. The take your balls out of your wife's purse part that Vic Berger dropped was amazing. So, all right, guys. It was great chatting with you. And I had fun playing Rakugaki. And I highly recommend this game. If you're into PlayStation 1 emulation, do not sleep on this game, especially if you like playing co-op or versus games, because I think this game actually has both modes. You can do co-op and versus, and it's a lot of fun with multiple people. So, Rakugaki Showtime, and yeah, see you tomorrow, everybody. We'll be doing this again tomorrow. Take care. See you, Michael.